rallies across the nation and here in Colorado as the Supreme Court appears ready to toss out Roe v. Wade.
These are our choices to be had. Our bodies, our choices, our survival.
Tonight, we're taking you 360 in depth on this important issue, including what could come next for the Supreme Court and what it would mean for Coloradans.
In a state like Colorado, it stands to actually mobilize both sides of the debate.
Plus, the question on a lot of minds tonight, who leaked the draft opinion?
This could have short-circuited that process.
All right, we begin tonight with a look outside the U.S. Supreme Court building, quiet for the first time in 24 hours. These are some of the large crowds gathered there protesting its preliminary decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.
And we are seeing this across the country after that draft opinion was leaked to Politico. Here in Colorado, multiple rallies were held outside our Capitol in support of abortion rights.
Now, not every gathering today has been in support of abortion rights. There also were rallies today celebrating the court's possible decision.
Chief Justice John Roberts confirms this leaked draft is authentic and an investigation is underway to identify the source.
Now, the High Court has not made an official ruling. That official ruling will come this summer.
And in the meantime, we are taking you 360 in depth, bringing you different perspectives on this important, deeply divisive issue.
We're going to begin with Denver 7's Rob Harris asking experts what comes next.
Yes, and as you've been stressing, Shannon, this is not yet an official ruling from the Supreme Court, but the court has confirmed the authenticity of this draft. So with that said, we want to dive into two overarching questions coming through tonight. First, could this ruling lead to the overturn of other court decisions like same-sex marriage? And if so, what could that mean for Colorado? To help us answer these questions, we talked to two experts, Jennifer Hendricks, a professor of law at the University of Colorado, and Joshua Wilson, a professor of political science at the University of Denver. So question one, could this ruling lead to the overturning of other Supreme Court decisions? Both of our experts say yes.
The right to abortion is part of a modern edifice of constitutional rights that are usually sort of grouped under the general concept of the right to privacy. The original modern case in that line was a case called Griswold versus Connecticut, which struck down the criminalization of contraception. And also that is the same line of cases that protects the right to marry, which includes both Loving, the interracial marriage case, and Obergefell, the same-sex marriage case. The foundation for all of those precedents has been yanked out.
Some on Twitter are correctly pointing out that Justice Alito in this draft opinion specifically says it's not intended to go after decisions other than abortion. But our experts say that's not how Supreme Court decisions operate in the real world.
He tries to cordon off what he's arguing and to say this only applies to Roe and can't apply to other fundamental rights. That's not the way that law works. Future lawyers in future cases can use the same sorts of arguments that he's laying out here to go after other established fundamental rights.
Now to question two. What could this mean for same-sex couples married in Colorado? In some ways, that remains to be seen. Colorado voters in 2006 approved a constitutional amendment that defined marriage as being between one man and one woman. But a U.S. District Court struck down that ban in 2014, about a year before the Supreme Court decision in Obergefell v. Hodges, which legalized same-sex marriage across the country. Because the District Court's decision leaned on the federal Constitution, Professor Hendricks says an overturn of the Supreme Court's decision could resurrect state bans, including Colorado's.
In that sense, Colorado would need to act affirmatively to protect the right to same-sex marriage if there were, if Obergefell were overruled.
Now, both professors I spoke to said they do expect Colorado lawmakers will act ahead of time to protect same-sex marriage in the state, much like they did with abortion and contraception access last month. Shannon.
All right, Rob Harris tonight. Thanks, Rob. And as you know, abortion has remained, if not the, certainly among our country's most divisive issues for more than a generation. So taking a deeper look tonight, according to a new poll from ABC News and the Washington Post, 54% of Americans said the Supreme Court should uphold Roe versus Wade. 28% said it should be overturned. In that same poll, 70% said the decision to have an abortion should be left to a woman and her doctor. 24% surveyed said it should be regulated by law.
Well, let's hear from those who the Supreme Court's eventual decision will impact most, women. Today, we talked with Selena Nahar and also Rachel Flick. Both have had abortions, but now hold different perspectives. For Selena, she says she would not be where she is today had she not had an abortion.
Not just financially, but I think physically and emotionally, I would not be as healthy of a person as I am right now. Abortion care doesn't have to be traumatic. It's societal stigma that traumatizes people.
On the flip side, Rachel tells us she regrets having an abortion and does not believe she had the, quote, moral authority to take a life.
I made that decision really early in the pregnancy. I think I was trying to run from my consequences, from the experience. I had made the choice to end a life, and I did that pretty deliberately, honestly. But I thought it was worth it for the future that I wanted.
All right, so now to the question, who leaked the draft opinion to Politico? Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser is a former Supreme Court clerk, and we asked him today who would have access to that document.
At the Supreme Court, the norm is, in addition to each justice, a single law clerk would work on the case, and you'd obviously have some staff member who might be administrative assistant. Now, they might be able to share with others. They might potentially bring it home, or they might show it to another law clerk. So it's any number of people who could have access to a document, but before this incident, I never heard of a document being leaked before.
And Weiser calls this leak extremely damaging for the Supreme Court, adding that it could short-circuit the court's process. Now, no matter who leaked this draft opinion, certainly not going to help the already eroding trust in the Supreme Court. Taking a closer look tonight, a Pew Research poll in January found 54% of Americans held a favorable opinion of the High Court. Now, that's down from 70% in August of 2020. On the other side, 44% of Americans reported having an unfavorable view of the court, and that's up from 29% 18 months before.
And looking ahead, this is happening during an important political year. The November midterms will decide which party runs the House and the Senate. Democrats control both chambers right now, with Republicans poised to shift the balance of power. Seth Maskett is a political science professor at DU. He tells Denver 7 that overturning Roe v. Wade could provide motivation for Democratic voters.
This could really bring them to the polls, the idea that, that they're about to lose a right that they have thought they had and that many people have fought for decades.
As for Republican voters, Maskett says the Supreme Court's decision could bring a mixed bag.
Republican voters are actually quite mixed in their views on whether Roe v. Wade should be overturned. So this could actually divide Republican voters. Some could be very surprised by this and a little shocked. We don't actually know what that would do for their midterm votes.
So much reaction to this bombshell from the Supreme Court. You can catch up on our 360 coverage right now over on thedenverchannel.com.
Denver's Pride Fest is June 25th and 26th, and the Center on Colfax's Pride Parade is going to be in person for the first time since 2019.
And headlines were made last year when police were prohibited from participating in the parade.
Now, that plan has changed this year. Denver 7 CB Cotton has these exclusive details.
The outside world always has an opinion, and those inside the Center on Colfax know this all too well.
Well, our announcement last year about Denver Pride and not including police in that event was very controversial.
In 2021, Denver's Pride Parade was virtual due to COVID, but still, the center announced that for the first time, police couldn't participate as exhibitors. The Center on Colfax CEO Rex Fuller says over the past year, they've done a lot of listening and reflecting. And this year, for the parade slated on June 26th, there's a new plan.
We're working with representatives from law enforcement and first responders to create a group called Pride on Duty Colorado. And the idea is that we will be able to incorporate in the Pride Parade this year LGBT law enforcement officers as well as other first responders so that they can be represented.
LGBTQ officers from across the region are expected to join in the parade on foot.
It'll be a marching contingent, I believe. This is the first year that we're doing it. I think what's also exciting is that the Pride on Duty group also wants to provide year-round support for LGBT officers and first responders.
Fuller knows this concept won't make everyone happy.
Many police officers were really hurt and were offended by the decision.
The center said last year's move was to stand in solidarity against, quote, police violence aimed at the Black community. The center also cited the history of the LGBTQ civil rights movement.
The Pride movement really started in reaction to the Stonewall riot back in 1969, which was a riot that came from police harassment of the LGBT community.
But a new year, a new decision, and Fuller says the center is striving for inclusion.
We've tried to come to the best compromise that we can that would represent the most perspectives of what we heard throughout the past year.
We reached out to several officers who identify as LGBTQ for this story, but none were available this evening. I was able to speak with one Denver police officer who plans on participating in this year's Pride Parade, and he says he's very excited for this public display of two parts of his life. In the newsroom, I'm CB Cotton, Denver 7.
All right, thank you, CB. The Stanley Cup playoffs have arrived in Denver. Tonight, the best in the West Avs are squaring off against the Nashville Predators in Game 1 at Ball Arena. Betting lines in Vegas show the Avs with the best odds to bring home the cup. Now, one fan we talked to outside of the arena tonight gave us his prediction.
What do you think they're going to do the rest of the series?
Win the Stanley Cup, but they're going to play the New York Rangers. And I'll tell you right now, that's going to be a good series.
All right, it has been 21 years since the Avs last hoisted the cup. Lionel will tell us how they are doing in Game 1 coming up in sports.
Scattered showers and not as cold tonight with the cool, damp day on tap for tomorrow. Then we have some very warm weather on the way following this cold front. I'll have your forecast coming up.
Calling it a career.
I like for my students to know the stories. The stories of history are the stories of our lives.
A teacher retiring after more than 40 years of educating Denver's youngest and brightest.
Plus, caught on camera, a porch pirate targets a North Denver home.